Good evening and welcome to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel presented by the JeopardyFan.com. This is February the 28th, not the last day of the month, though, of course. We've got Leap Day tomorrow. But once again, I am Andy Saunders, and I will be moderating tonight's panel. So here we go. Let's get straight into the introductions. First up, we've got returning to Jeopardy Live panel fresh off her trip to New Zealand as well. Welcome back, Kerry Greene. How was New Zealand?
Oh, it was awesome. It was very hard to come home. We kept saying, maybe Mom will stay an extra few days, but no, it was, beautiful weather and wine, and it was just very nice.
Also, we've got on our panel tonight Ryan Hall, first time on panel. Thanks for joining us, Ryan. Welcome.
Sure, great to be here, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
And finally, from this past week's worth of games, with a backdrop I'm sure that David Kendall you will appreciate, Jill Panall. And congratulations, Panall, yes. Congratulations on your victory. And
small victories.
Well, small victories, but
I'll take them.
Yeah. Above average, 26,000 and change. So, the average is usually around 20,000. So, I'd say you did pretty well for yourself.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big week in general.
I know it's been a big last. It's been a big last few days since since that Tim and Chris game where Tim walked away with 45,000 or 46,000. That was the that was kind of the turning point. It's been all big since then, which is really nice because we've had about 2 or 3 months where it's been a bunch of really, really small champions. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was an exciting day to watch. There's a lot going on in the studio. It was really fun.
So before we get into that, so everyone gets a chance to connect who wants to watch, I'm going to start off with this week in Jeopardy history. And for this one, we're going back to March 2nd of 1998. This game was actually pointed out to me shortly after the most recent 000 game by Matt Carberry. It was a celebrity game. Jane Curtin, Terry Garr, and Naomi Judd, which also, unfortunately for all the celebrities involved, also ended with 3 zeros. They had a final Jeopardy of TV sitcoms, and the question was, for your information, this series that premiered in 1988 is TV's longest-running sitcom still on the air as of 98. And, of course, the tease-out metric being for your information, which brings you, of course, to Murphy Brown. All 3 players bet everything zeroed out, even though Jane did, in fact, have a lock game at the time. Because Jane Curtin was the leading going into Final Jeopardy, the show did give her charity, the U.S. Committee for UNICEF, the $15,000. But one of the rare times that a Jeopardy game has finished without a winner. I guess, we might as well get straight into it, now that I've mentioned that. By the way, if you've got any comments for the panel, of course, you can always leave those on Twitter using the hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, and if I like them, I will read them out. Let's see, we've got... already, looks like you've got a fan already on in the audience, Jill. From Jack at RockandJack18. Jill, don't get down on yourself. You were definitely his favorite contestant of the week. So that's...
I'll take it. Thank you, sir.
So, the week started out with Tim doing pretty well, winning his 4th game, 107,000 in his 4 wins. What do you think that does for his Tournament of Champions chances, guys?
Well, it's been so long since there's been a 5-time champion. I was really surprised. I mean, he really seemed to be in the rhythm, and, I thought he'd be there a long time.
Yeah, he was on the bus with us going over in the morning. He's a very quiet guy. It's similar to what you see on the TV. He's a quiet dude, and he's very humble, and Maggie saying, "Oh, Tim, you won like 62,000." Tim's like 82.5, and she was like, "Whoa." And he was really calm. He was impressive. He was kind of a stone-faced killer, and everyone was a little bit nervous, I think. And he was really nice. He was like, anybody can win, but he was definitely a little scary.
Yeah. Let me just run through the comment section quickly. Maria actually stopped by, the Jeopardy fan, earlier this week, left a comment on Tim staying, and she was unable to join us tonight, unfortunately, but she also hopes Tim makes it to the Tournament of Champions. He is whip-smart and gracious in victory and one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. Had only nice things to say to and about the other contestants. So I can definitely see you agreeing with that statement, Jill.
I do, and Maria was super sweet too. I really enjoyed talking to her, and I think she'd gotten some crap about that face she made when she was sort of so surprised, but I think she was honestly surprised by that answer, and I think we've all had that moment where you're like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm right, but okay, you do you. Yeah. But yeah, he was such a nice guy. And I asked him what he was going to spend the money on, and he honestly didn't know. He was like, he was so floored, and I think he's just a humble person who's not like marching in there going, I'm going to win everything, I'm amazing. He just was really nice dude.
Now, how long did the judges actually deliberate on, that response of, I guess, upside down on your mortgage?
A while. They deliberated for a while, and I think we were all kind of shaking our heads because the clue itself had mentioned holding your breath, so we're all like, how is, but they, they have their own mysterious judge ways, and they definitely took a while to think about it. It definitely was, I know there's a lot of, concern about fairness, and I think they spent a lot of time thinking, this is truly an occasion where they really try to be fair, I think.
But yeah, I mean, definitely her facial reaction was noticed. I mean, when I was on the Larry Fedoruk show on radio up here earlier this week talking about the online test, Larry, the host, even brought it up, Maria's reaction. So I definitely was it was definitely noticed by a lot of people.
Yeah, I think, the judging about Bill's response of Le Havre versus Le Havre yesterday on Friday's game, that one actually took a lot longer. They really went back and forth on that, and I think they listened to the audio like a bunch of times because, American French pronunciation's not always so pretty.
Mm-hmm. What did you guys, not to declare open season on the judging, but what did the rest of the panel think of that?
The pronunciation one?
Yes.
I thought they should have given it to him. I mean, come on. The pronunciation gets murdered all the time.
I concur that sometimes it gets really ticky-tacky, especially with like the foreign pronunciations.
Yeah.
I am personally going to, it's hard to say. At least from my perspective, it's as somebody who's still in the contestant pool waiting for a call. I'm really, on the one hand, it might, if I ever get on, it might actually make me be very hesitant on ringing in if a foreign pronunciation is required, because is my pronunciation correct? Are they going, if it isn't, am I going to get, a crucial neg on it? Either that, or I just, maybe try to learn a bunch of foreign place names, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because a lot of these things, you read. You don't ever say them. You don't hear them in conversation. You read it in the newspaper or in a magazine or, whatever, and you don't know how to pronounce it. And there's regular words that we do that with, So I think this is a bit critical to hold that against somebody. Clearly he knew it. So, to me that's kind of
I think especially after the whole upside down versus underwater debacle that went towards, that went away from Maria, I think to, be nitpicky on that and then, kind of the whole Havre thing, it's like, oh boy, it went towards Maria, but that's kind of tough. I thought, I don't know, if I closed my eyes, I don't think I had heard Bill say it that way, but I think in the heat of the game, I guess when you listen to the audio and you go, oh, your minutely French pronunciation is off, sir.
I think I remember watching a game. It was a few years old, but there was this one kid, and it was about a god from the Aztec religion, and he just butchered the name. It's a very long, multiple syllable name.
Yeah.
He butchered it, but they gave it to him anyway.
Yeah, well, I think it was with the Quetzalcoatl. Like, people always get that one wrong, because you're not going to... I mean, how often do you get to say Quetzalcoatl in, like, public?
Mm-hmm. And especially if you're like a 12-year-old kid trying to say it, too.
Right? Sure.
Yeah, I always hate when that's, an answer. I just feel like that's kind of stacking the deck against everybody.
You know what? You know which one I actually thought that one on? You know what? What I was surprised by about, I guess, last season, the Scheherazade final, making people have to spell Scheherazade, because I know that. I remember it came up on an online test once, and I had trouble spelling Scheherazade. And
well, yeah, and if they're going to give me crap for spelling Mallorca, they're going to give me crap for spelling Scheherazade. I mean, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Well, and Mallorca was right.
Well, it was right. Hence the faith. I got a few mean people on Twitter saying that I was, smug and obnoxious, but I spelled that right. This is a spelling bee champion here. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are two spellings to Mallorca.
Right, but that's not even that's not even the hardest word. So I mean, Scheherazade that's evil. I mean, there's got to be a bunch of different ways to spell that, and there's that's like having to spell Polish words. Like, where does the C go? Is it before the Z or both?
Yeah, being married to a Waskowski, I know where you're coming from.
There you go.
All those extra stupid consonants for no reason.
Always a C and a Z, and there are more C's.
Yeah, you don't need an S and a Z. One or the other,
More is better, right?
So now, other than, of course, the two we've already spoken about this week, were there any other long judges' conferences or any other weird tape stoppings this week?
I don't think so. I mean, asking me to remember like 6 weeks ago, I don't sleep that much.
Yeah.
I have a baby and I don't sleep that much, so sure. I don't think so. The hard one was the longest. They made everyone turn around, and that was a really like big deal. I don't think so. I think was anything else get corrected? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think so either, to be honest with you. But there were no major, or at least those were the two I remember in terms of major corrections.
Yeah. And that's sort of the whole joke about the Cape Common carry-on. That was kind of funny, because I don't know how you managed to miss that one, but Alex was like, I've never heard that before. Okay.
Well, it's funny because actually that was not the easiest. That was not the easiest Final Jeopardy of the week on Jboard. Fridays is actually polling a little bit easier. So.
Pomp and circumstance, yeah.
Yeah. Which I guess what it's. To be honest, I found it surprising that Keep Calm and Carry On was not the easiest of the week as well. So.
Okay. Fair enough.
I mean, granted, I've probably seen like 24 different parodies of it, and
yeah. I got been there, done that, got the tote bag.
Yeah. What were your thoughts, Ryan?
On the Keep Calm and Carry On one?
Versus Pomp and Circumstance. Which one did you think was easier?
Yeah, those were the two that I got, and I would say Keep Calm and Carry On probably was slightly easier. But I could understand people maybe not seeing all the parodies on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I would vote for Keep Calm and Carry On as being a little easier, because I feel like anytime you get into like marches and stuff, there's always like sort of weird outliers. Like maybe I missed some weird thing I don't know about British marches. Like I could see how you could second guess yourself.
For the Pomp and Circumstance, when I was totally expecting before the reveal for Alex to say something about graduation.
Right. Yeah.
Well, he's also very old, and I don't think they used that at graduations when he graduated.
He's like 107, right? Yeah. I think that's probably how most Americans know that march is from graduation.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's. Oh, yeah. I would say so.
Alex has aged well. We'll give him that.
He looks like my dad. It was very weird for me because he really looks a lot like my actual human father, and so I kept having this weird reaction to him where I was like, "Why am I talking to my dad? It's so weird."
So getting on to your game, I guess, a little bit, Jill. I mean, your first game went very well, I'd say. Just curious, though, did you know Ben's last Daily Double there, the hydroponics one?
Oh, as soon as they said it, I had this inner sinking feeling. I'm like, Ben is a research chemist. He went to Berkeley. He's a super smart guy. And I was like, oh, he's killing me. And then he didn't know it, and I had this sort of rising moment of like, oh my God, he doesn't know. Like, I just helped this. I mean, not to mock him or anything. I was just so excited that he didn't know, because I thought that opened the door for me. I was like, this opens the door.
Was that the point where you really turned it on? Because in that first game, it was like, you know, everybody was even, and then all of a sudden it was like you were going to win that game. And
I never turned it off. That's funny, because Maggie came up to me and she's like, we love your aggressive game playing. I was like, that's just who I am. Like, I don't have an off switch, and I think all the people that called me twitchy and annoying were sort of picking up on that. I'm just like, go. And, I mean, I had such a hard time with the buzzer both days, and I feel like I just couldn't get it right. And I'm just, like, mashing that thing, and they came up to me and asked me to stop twirling the cord, because they thought I was going to break it. The tech guys were like, you're going to break this? And they were so distressed. They were like, this is our expensive technology. Please stop touching it.
yeah, you can throw it on the ground, though, and put it back together. So
I'm sure.
Jen Schultz proved that.
There was a lot of distress. So, yeah, I just kind of, at that point, I was like, I could sort of, my brother-in-law texted me. He's like, what are you looking at? I was like, I'm looking at the scores. Like, you can see my eyes on the video. Like, what are you looking at? I'm looking at the scores. And I'm like, I can do this. I can make this happen. And I think as soon as they said legendary women, I was like, score, because I have an English degree. I spent a lot of time in history. I mean, as I mentioned on Thursday, you know, my husband dragged me to a bunch of SCA events. Like, I'm like, I can do this. I actually had a little hesitation with Guinevere, because I was like, it could be Boadicea.
Oh, I know, I thought of that too.
Boudica, whatever. There's a million pronunciations, but I was like, no, I'm going Guinevere. I'm just making this happen.
Yeah, I was like, Dan, do you think that's too obscure? So
yeah. Well, and I don't know, because I don't know if she's. I mean, there's.
Well, she's in my family tree. She's one of my aunts.
Believe that she's real. It's kind of.
She better be real.
and I think a lot of people took a sort of issue with the word legendary, meaning mythical, versus legendary versus like legendary. So
exactly.
A lot of people were like, well, Maria's answer wasn't wrong, because it was legendary doesn't mean because Queen Elizabeth was real. Not Maria. I'm sorry. Susie. Yeah. But, because she wasn't the person, because Alex said to her, oh, she was real. I'm like, well, you can be real and legendary.
Yeah, I think they, obviously they took, I mean, the show had intended legendary to mean according to legend. But
right. Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely had that moment of, okay, I can do this. And, I kept telling people, like, Susie was so nice, and everyone kept saying, oh, she didn't answer a lot of questions. And I was like, you passed all the same tests as the rest of us. She's really, really sweet. And she already won $125,000 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So I was like, I don't feel that bad for her, really. Like, I'm not dying inside. I'm feeling like that. All the cabins she mentioned buying. Like, you buy a lot of cabins when you win that kind of money, I guess.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Though I don't think a lot of the people who watched Jeopardy saw her a millionaire, unfortunately, which might have explained a bit. But
yeah, and I guess I don't really know all the rules. I'm not sort of a career game show person, and I don't think I'll ever do another game show again, being sort of horrified at seeing myself on television. But I guess there's different rules about who, different ones you can and can't do in different networks and whatnot. So I guess people move from network to network doing different game shows.
Well, I mean, they've got... I mean, you can have, a certain... You have to wait a certain amount of time before going on your next one.
Okay.
But if you space them out, you're able to.
Okay. Well, eternity is my amount of time. I'm all done.
Yeah.
There are definitely people, in the Jeopardy community that have been on many other game shows. And then there are some who, like me, I mean, that was it. Jeopardy was it. I never had any interest in doing any other show. Yeah. And then, like 500 Questions was casting, and she friended me on Facebook, the casting producer, and she, was messaging me, and it's like, it's not that I have anything against your show. Jeopardy was it for me, I don't want to study anymore. I don't want to think about that. I have a life, so.
Yeah, I'm with you, because that was like my dream from like when I was a little kid to be on Jeopardy, and it wasn't to be on TV or to be famous. It was just to be on Jeopardy. Yeah. So like the rest of it, I don't care. And I actually had someone tell me like yesterday, oh, you should be on, whatever show. And I said, no, I'm not interested. And she's like, so you're wasting your intelligence. And I was like, I use my intelligence in my job. Like, I'm just going to use it the old-fashioned way, like at work,
To make the world a better place,
Right? I volunteer. I work with a diaper bank. Like, I'm trying to use my intelligence in other ways. So maybe not.
Now, I've got a question for you from Fred Vaughn, Jill.
Hi, Fred.
Is Pensick the event you referred to in your second quote-unquote fireside chat?
Oh yes, fireside chat. I like that. I like that. Very presidential. Yeah, my husband talked me into going to Pensick 40. He had been involved with Society for Creative Anachronism stuff a lot more before we met and were engaged and married. And so he talked me into going to it was a big deal, the 40th anniversary of the first Pensick. So we drove our butts out to Western Pennsylvania. It's a 10-hour drive from where we live, so it was kind of a pain. And all of our stuff and our SCA personas are Icelandic Viking. So dressing like Icelandic Vikings in the 80,000 degree heat in Pennsylvania in July it's a challenge.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I have some good pictures somewhere I have to share with folks. It's a lot of fun. My husband actually and one of his best friends from college made all my clothes themselves, which is really cool. So I tell people my husband's like a lumberjack who also sews.
It's an interesting hobby. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't do it much anymore. I mean, it took up so much time, and it's we have a little one. It's not really conducive, and I mean, a lot of people bring their kids from beginning of their lives, but my kid's a maniac. I can't imagine chasing him around like however.
Icelandic Viking, though,
he's got some part Viking blood in him, so he's going to be a big Viking child. Actually, I think he's wearing a Viking shirt right now.
There you go.
People gave us a lot of Viking gear when he was born.
So, I guess my next question kind of semi comes from Fred as well, but it stems from something I usually ask of our panelists. B, he actually made reference to this earlier, actually last night on Jboard, because he's like, oh, as a certain Canadian may ask you soon. So this is the question I usually ask people who are in the studio. Over the Wednesday, Thursday lunch break, what did you have for lunch in the Sony commissary?
Salad. Yeah. And it's funny because all the people that work at Jeopardy are like complaining about how horrible the food is and how they're just very dramatic about it. And I thought it was perfectly lovely, having worked in a lot of corporations and eaten a lot of corporate cafeterias. I thought it was fine, and I think the special California people didn't weren't feeling so good about it. But I thought it was fine, and I was like, I'm not going to do anything crazy because I don't want to be standing up there and be like, oh, I'm dying.
That actually makes sense. Ooh, yes, Fred also is like, yes, we should keep referring to the interview with Alex as the fireside chat. I can go with that.
Say that again? Yeah, the
Fred, yes, the fireside
great.
chat. Yes, I would definitely go for that, yeah. And so, did you know Chris's Daily Double that when he got his on Thursday that he missed?
Which one was that? Remind me, please.
Sorry, let me just quickly bring that up again.
I'm sorry, my brain is like shot, so I can't remember what it was. Oh,
yes, Life of Pi. Sorry, yes.
Oh, I did. I didn't really like that book, so I was like, oh, Jan Martel, I don't like that book. I'm glad he didn't get it.
He's Canadian.
Yeah.
But, so I mean, I obviously personally have a bit of a soft spot for the Canadian literature, but.
He has a new book out. Did you read it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't either. So I read Life of Pi. I didn't like it either.
I've been told the movie was better. My mother-in-law is a librarian who almost never ever says that, so I have to kind of take that as gospel because she never ever says the movie's better than the book. So she said it was.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
For me, it was just hearing the tiger, and that's kind of was the big hint.
Yeah, that too, that killed it right away. I mean, I couldn't even remember the tiger's name was Richard Parker. If the clue had been what is the name of tiger in the Life of Pi, I would never have remembered that. But the tiger was like, how many other books have I read with a tiger in them?
Yeah, my husband got it, and he didn't read it, so, and didn't see the movie.
Yeah.
It's funny, I didn't see the movie, but I saw all the ads for it, and the tiger was always like in the ads and stuff in the trailer.
Well, yeah, the tiger in the movie was like huge. It was all CG, right? So
that's tigers tend to be.
So, I guess you stayed. I guess judging by the fact you made comments about Friday's game from behind the scenes, you did stay after Thursday to keep watching?
Yeah, I mean, it's only another half an hour, and my friend was there, and I was like, what am I going to do now? Like, they give you a ride to the studio, but they don't give you a ride home, so I was just like, I might as well hang out and watch the last game. Plus, I mean, you get to know the people. You're sitting with them and talking to them. It's kind of nice to see them, kind of finish out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I'd probably want to stay around as much as I could as well. So.
David was really fascinating. I talked to him, I think, the most because he was sitting across from me at the sort of green room table, and he's a really interesting dude. And I actually think I'd probably read his book, about the Franciscan friars that were murdered, because he was telling us more about it, and it sounds fascinating. And I was like, wow, that's really cool that you get to do, go to different archives and read about history mysteries and then write books about them. That sounds like an awesome job. How do I get that job?
Yeah, I lost on a Thursday. I stayed for the last game too, which was kind of nice because I got to see Alex Jacob play. So.
A little bit of early scouting, clearly.
I thought, I'm really glad I didn't have to play him.
Foreshadowing.
Exactly.
Well, guess what? You had to anyway. So.
I know, yeah. Longest hour of my life.
But those two are intense. You guys are all really intense. That was pretty wild.
See, I'm methodical. I'm not intense, so it was definitely. Yeah. Well, and I mean, we had to eat lunch together, and we watched movies together, just the three of us. So it was like a lot of time with tension in the room, and by the time we got to play, it was like, oh, thank God, this is going to be over. I just want to have a drink and relax. So.
Right, I'm sure. Yeah. I can't even. That's a lot of togetherness.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, they're both really, really nice guys, but they weren't like at their, entertainment best at that point because they were, both so. Well, I'm sure I wasn't either, so
Yeah, you're super focused.
Yeah.
I mean, both Matt and Alex are the kind of people who, are focusing 100% on the task at hand and like, exactly. Okay, what is this? Get this stupid movie away from me, sort of thing. And
right, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, and it was Terminator, so I was like trying to make jokes about the 80s because, I was alive then. And,
right.
And they just weren't,
Weren't having it. Yeah. That's funny.
So, before I get to some more questions from the panel, for those of you who are involved in LearnedLeague, you'll know that they've introduced private Rundles, and there is a Jeopardy Live panel Rundle, and through 5 match days this year, Pat Kavanaugh is 5-0 and is leading the Jeopardy Live panel private Rundle so far. So congratulations to Pat. Much to Tom Kelso's chagrin, I'm sure, over defensive choices on Friday, but that's something.
Well, so far she's taken down 2 Tournament of Champions contestants, so I think she's pretty happy.
I don't think I have any idea what you just said. I don't even know if you have time to explain any of that, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, so yes, LearnedLeague. That is an online trivia league.
Oh.
That is run by a man who now lives in Seattle, and I would say, a significant number of Jeopardy alumni now play LearnedLeague. Kerry is involved with that. Ryan. Also, you are in LearnedLeague, correct?
That's correct. Yep, that's my second season.
Yeah, and so, yep. So, basically 6 questions today, and it's not just how many questions you can get, but there's a defensive aspect to them, and you actually assign points for your opponents. So. You can actually win or tie in spite of getting fewer questions.
Oh, yes,
correct.
yes. Andy is referring to a match earlier in the Jeopardy Live panel private Rundle, so.
Yes. In which, yes, Kerry and I had a match this week in which we tied because I played defense slightly better. To answer David Kendall's recent question about it, who all is in the live panel private Rundle, there are 16 of us. Oh boy.
Vaughn Winchell, Pat Kavanaugh, Donnie Edgman, Tom Kelso,
Keith Williams.
Yes, I haven't played Keith yet, so.
Jennifer
Morrow.
Let's see. Drew Sheeler, Dan Blake, TOC winner Michael Falk, Darren Harris Fane, the Dark Lord.
The Dark Lord, yeah.
Yes, the Dark Lord is in fourth. Kea Chua, Jennifer Morrow, Drew Sheeler, Dan Blake. He was on our online test special. Donnie Edgman, you mentioned. Terrence Jordan and his friend Eric Molander, as well as, last but certainly not least, Mike Duvall. Who is
the famous Mike Duvall.
The famous Mike Duvall, who was disappointed because the reruns skipped over his episode.
I know, that's really rude.
Well, he was because Scott Yelinin didn't make the Tournament of Champions. That's my bad. And yet they skipped over Alex Jacobs' episodes, too.
Yeah, I thought maybe they were saving him for something, but I don't know what, so...
I'm not sure. So yeah, that's a little bit off on the tangent there. But
if you're interested, Jill, just go to the website LearnedLeague.com and then message me or whatever. You need a referral, but it's not a problem. There's tons of people that have them.
I have no free time to pee or eat, so I'm guessing the answer. Small children are painful.
Yeah, it's you just you kind of live in the moment, and it does get better.
It does.
And then it gets worse.
I know you're an expert, so I trust you.
No, I think this is a good thing to talk about, stemming from a question that's just come through on the hashtag, because sometimes we forget that sometimes there are things we take for granted as a panel that maybe the general viewership doesn't know, but at Rock and Jack 18 is wondering how the show knows about the stories for the interview. So we might as well let's talk about that a bit. How does the show know? How does the show know what stories you want to talk about?
I feel like that's an interesting question, because I feel like I filled out this really long questionnaire and they picked the most mundane facts about my life possible, and rather than the interesting stuff, or what I thought was the interesting stuff. So I guess I'm not as interesting as I think I am. And at least they clear it with you right before, hey, here's your possible choices Alex might talk about. But Alex could be like, hey, I like your dress, instead of anything that's on your card. So you kind of don't know. I think that's why everyone always makes that kind of oh yeah face, right when he starts talking, because oh, that's where he's gonna go with this one. Okay, he picked this one.
Yeah, definitely. He most of the time will pick off the card, but you don't know. You give them a suggestion of this is what I'd like to talk about next, but he does not always respect that choice.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and for the benefit of the question, when you get the call, they give you, as Jill mentioned, a long questionnaire to fill out to actually ascertain what interesting things Alex might want to talk about with you. I know it's funny, with Jennifer Morrow, Alex was not going to be allowed to go off the card for her first interview. She tells the story that the contestant coordinators actually wrote on her card, she has the drumsticks from Neil Peart, and so Alex was not going to be allowed to go off the card there. But,
oh, that's awesome. It's I gotta get a good Rush reference. I'm all over it.
Yeah, I think she would have, introduced that subject even if he hadn't asked about it, so it was better that he just asked about it.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't really interrupt him and be like, well, excuse me, I don't really want to talk about that. I want to talk about this. Except Matt Jackson, who did that. In the tournament. I don't know that he did it in any of his regular games, but Alex asked him if he studied for the tournament.
Yes,
and he said, yes, I did, but this is what I want to say. I
just
thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
Go.
Hey, you win 14 games, you get to correct Alex.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I think it's remarkable for those at home that haven't been involved. They give you a stack of paperwork that's like the size of it. There's a giant phone book that you have to fill out and sign all this stuff, and the lawyery speak is amazing. You say that they're allowed to use your image in connection with the game in perpetuity anywhere in the known universe, in any medium that now exists or will ever exist. So if something in some 20 years from now they invent holograms that I don't know that delivered chocolate. You can have one sent to somebody. They can use my image if they want to because I signed a thing. And it's like, what? You kind of say, okay, like, sure, but at some point I was like, wow, this is like really crazy lawyer talk, like, in the known universe, like, woo!
Yeah, and the whole time I'm thinking, well, you know, all these people I admire signed it, so I guess I'll sign it too. You know, against every lawyer instinct that I have, because they do drill that into you, you know. But it's like, it's the way to get on the show, so.
Right, you're going to do it.
They know that.
I was thinking about how with even the auditions, there's the disclaimer that allows Jeopardy to use your image. And I was thinking they could, if they wanted to, set up a YouTube channel and just put up a bunch of audition videos.
Oh, that'd probably be the most awkward YouTube channel in history.
Yeah, that could be bad.
I don't know if I
thought my audition was going to be like, you know, I was in Boston. I thought it's going to be all MIT professors and me, you know, and like maybe a couple housewives from Providence. And it was such a wild variety of people, but there was a lot of people that had clearly like practiced their very awkward story, and they were trying so hard to be funny. Quote, I'm going to use the air quotes, funny. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, these poor people, like they've never been on video before. Clearly, they have no clue like what they're going to come across as when they're like, let me tell you my story. And it's like, oh god. So I think that it works for your advantage if you get an audition to like act natural, be natural, just be normal.
It never even occurred to me to practice the story. I just was stunned to hear that people did that. You know, it was like, this is the part where you're supposed to talk about yourself. Why would you practice that? It's horrible. You know, I mean,
I think a lot of people are really uncomfortable talking about themselves. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, there definitely were people that I felt were really practicing.
Well, I at least ran my stories by people before I put them down.
Yeah.
To be like, do you guys think this works? But
it is just so hard. 5 stories that are interesting about yourself. I mean, come on, you know? That was not easy. And then I had to keep coming up with more, you know, which was not easy.
Yeah, I read in Ken Jennings' book. I read his book, and it was funny. He was talking about by sort of the end of his run, they were just like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then I was done. They had just nothing left to say anymore. There's just like nothing left.
Sort of like now in Sports Jeopardy with Vinny. They just that's of course a different vibe, much casual. How Dan Patrick, they would just goof around.
Yep, I was about to say, I wonder how Vinny feels about that. But I'm not sure if he's tuning in tonight, but. I'm sure he can certainly attest to running out of things to say.
Right.
So, when and where? So you already mentioned you auditioned in Boston. When was your audition, Jill?
October 5th. So of this past year.
Okay.
And they called me 3 weeks later, and I nearly had a heart attack because I was like, I thought they were kidding, and I got Lori. She's like, "This is Lori from Jeopardy and a program called Sports Jeopardy." And I was like, "You don't need to tell me. Like, I know what you're talking about, lady." I mean, it says Sony Picture Studio on your caller ID, and like, I seriously was like, "I'm gonna drop the baby and have a heart attack right now."
That's who called me, was Lori. I still have the voicemail.
I do too. And then when they called me back, because, you know, I was scheduled to tape right before Thanksgiving, and that's when Alex had his knee surgery, and they were moving all the tapings. I saw the number come up again, and then I had a second heart attack because I thought, they're calling me to say, please don't come, you're done, you're fired, you're canceled, whatever, like, we don't want you anymore. And I just was like, my dream! And she was very quick to be like, don't freak out.
Mm-hmm. So are you in the contestant pool at this point, Ryan?
Yeah, actually, I think I just passed my 18 months.
Yeah, don't stress. It was 19 months before they called me. And somebody else was telling me 22 months. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, that 18, well, and, you know, people, I've told this story before, but when I talked to her, I said, you know, the first thing I said was, well, you must have the wrong person. You know, my 18 months are up. I thought they just skipped a name or something. So, and she just laughed. She was like, "Oh, I knew."
Yeah, that's interesting. I thought I've read about people on the internet and stuff where it was beyond the 18-month point.
So, my next question for Kerry, actually, this one from Fred Vaughn. How many times have you seen clips from your episodes elsewhere? Apparently, he's already seen clips twice in the months since his shows.
Oh, wow. Not a lot. I don't think I did a lot to stand out. I mean, my voice didn't irritate people. I had no, crossing my arms that made people upset. So in general, when I see myself, it's because it's in the game with somebody else, Alex Jacob, or the famous, Tom Imler game, and it's nothing to do with me.
Okay. I guess we're going to go off the wall a little bit right now with my next question, because after all, it is Oscar night. Do you guys have any picks in any categories you'd like to make? Or anyone you're hoping wins an Oscar?
Who will win or who should win?
Who do you think will win?
Will. Well, I think like Leonardo DiCaprio is winning all the primary awards in this award season, so they're saying he's a lock.
So you think this might be his, I guess, Career Achievement Award Oscar?
Or Leonardo DiCaprio, probably.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hard to think of him as like, I mean, he looks like a kid, I just think that's a funny way to put it, but my only investment in the Oscars in general is Lady Gaga and her song, because that movie I actually saw with my kids. So, documentary about sexual assault on college campuses. It was amazing, and the song is great, really, really.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a single one of the movies. I haven't seen a movie in so long. It's terrifying. I should catch up, but I don't even know who's in the running for any of it, so I'm the worst.
I'm let's put it this way. I think the only movies I've seen recently in the last 6 months at least, or 6 to 9 months even, Inside Out and Paper Towns. And I haven't really seen much since. So
Did you see Star Wars?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, Andy!
I have not seen The Force Awakens, so
Good grief, if I've seen it, everybody in the universe has seen it. That's
no,
incredible.
I haven't seen it either. We just can never find time. I don't have good babysitting, so I can never find time to get out.
Yeah.
The nice thing is I've also managed to avoid spoilers, which I think is even more impressive.
Wow,
that is impressive.
Very impressive.
Kind of a miracle, actually.
I'm pretty sure this doesn't count, but I've seen Kung Fu Panda like 10 times in the last 5 days. So. It's the thing.
Yeah, I've never even seen Frozen, so that gives you an idea of.
Don't watch it. That was a couple months ago. That guy bonked on Frozen, and I was like, you must not have any children, or know any children, or have ever heard of children, because Frozen is so everywhere. It's
that I even knew. So yeah.
Final Jeopardy on girls' names, the popular girls' names, and I was like, oh man, you're lucky. I actually kind of envied him. I was like, how you managed to avoid Frozen? That's impressive.
Yeah, I've seen Frozen, but
you can't. It's hard to miss. I mean, it actually happens.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, I'm at the point of the panel where I ask if anyone on the panel has any random questions for anyone else on the panel. You got anything, Ryan?
Well, I'm just trying to remember. Jill, did you play the guy from the Navy?
I did.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just let you know, I'm a Navy veteran. I'm currently in the Coast Guard, and it was kind of interesting that he was on there with his background.
He sank my battleship, I've been telling everybody, so they had to send the Navy after me. He was a really nice guy. He spent a lot of time in his career in the Coast Guard, and now he's in the Navy. He captains an amphibious ship, as he was talking about, and interestingly, one of my Coast Guard friends said all his chest medals were from the Coast Guard, so I don't know these things. I'll trust you and my friend, but he was really cool. I liked his cool glasses.
Oh yeah. It's kind of funny. I was thinking about that with when they have military personnel on Jeopardy. There's been some really more colorful contestants, but the thing about wearing a uniform is you really have to be cognizant you're in uniform,
right?
Keep up, the military bearing, and so yeah.
I was thinking, hey, you don't have to change between games. That's nice. You get your outfit. There's no changing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Nope, no changing. You just wear it every day. Just march around with it. Yeah, he was very cool. I mean, he definitely didn't give away too much, sort of secret information. Alex was very impressed and very interested, and because everyone kept saying, what do you talk to Alex about at the end when you're standing on your marks? And the game that I won, we talked about his knee surgery because he was pretty unhappy, and then the game that Chris won, the next game, he was like fascinated by Chris's boat. Like the rest of us did not even exist. He was just like, tell me about your boat, So.
Yeah, in the Navy, it's a ship.
Yes, I'm sorry, it's a ship. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, the amphibious ships, they call those, like the nickname is the Gator Freighter, so those carry the Marines.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, the Navy guys pretty much drive it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I live in one of the cities that claims to be the birthplace of the Coast Guard, so I should know these things, right?
Oh, what city?
Newburyport, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yep. So we have a sign, but apparently I think some other cities claim that as well, so I guess there's some dispute. But we have a base here, which is really cool.
Do you have any insight on this one, Ryan?
With
the other claimants, possibly.
Oh, well, there's like Point May, New Jersey, which is the home of the basic training in the Coast Guard, and probably any town, like all those small towns on the East Coast with lighthouses.
Yeah.
So you can trace it back to the lighthouse service.
Probably, yeah. I think our town has something to do with the Revolution and whatnot, and various early shipping and reasonable need to protect the coast because we're on a river system as well as the ocean, so there's quite a tricky navigational process to get in. But I don't know. So I guess my question for the other folks is, I was kind of expecting. Everyone kept telling me expect all these terribly mean people on Twitter to say like horrible things about you and ruin your life, and so far I've been able to mostly avoid it. I looked a little bit and was like, man, nothing I saw was terrible. But then I haven't gone back, and I don't think I'm going to because I have some sense of self-preservation. But do you guys find that to be the case? Did you get a lot of nastiness?
I got some, but it wasn't anything compared to some of the other stories I've heard since being, in touch with all of these Jeopardy folks. And, it's usually something ridiculous, like your voice or, a mannerism or, I know a lot of people because Jennifer was, kind of hyper and she couldn't hold still. And, a lot of people were just, oh, she's, trying to hog all the attention. And that really wasn't what was going on. So I think that it just, people will latch onto one thing and complain. People like to complain. It's clear. The biggest comment about me was I was robotic. I didn't have any emotion, and I was stiff, which, all is sort of true, so I didn't take a lot of offense at that.
I know. I kind of didn't take too much offense to people saying that I was a spaz or annoying. I was like, I guess I probably am pretty spazzy and annoying, so whatever. I would find me annoying, but one guy did say I was twitchier than Michael J. Fox, and I thought that was a little cruel because I don't think Parkinson's and Parkinsonism is a joke, but
yeah,
I'll make a donation to them and I'll have a last laugh.
Exactly.
One person was like, I think Jill is a Yankees fan.
Oh, and people, I think that was supposed to be an insult, but it's not.
Yeah, it is. No, it really is.
I know. I grew up in southern Connecticut, closer to New York, and I'm from a big Italian family that's like lifelong, Yankees fans. Joe DiMaggio. We used to go to New York all the time, the whole business. So I was pretty excited.
When you did that, I was like, oh, Dan.
I know. I just, as soon as I saw like a 1978 Ron Guidry question, I was like, oh my God, if I don't get this, I cannot go home. No one will speak to me again. And I got to get this. And when I got it, I was like, I just couldn't help being like, my whole family is going to be so excited. This is like the highlight of their entire lives. So, and I got a lot of flack for that from people, particularly in my real life, that were like, oh, you just disgraced us.
Well, yeah, I mean, they don't think you should live in Massachusetts at all, I'm sure, so.
Yeah, I'm a masshole by choice. It's hard to... Masshole by marriage.
Oh, God, I hope you don't drive like one, that's all.
No, I think you kind of have to. It's part of the process.
Oh, God, isn't it terrible? I mean, and this is, I've got these 16-year-olds on the road, and, it's scary
I know,
stuff.
You said that to me the other day. I was, like, terrified, because I can't even think about, like, when my son starts to drive in the future, like, having two of them at the same time.
Oh,
like,
yeah, it's insane. And we pay more for his insurance than the three of us put together, so, yeah, it's insane.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'm just going through, looking back now. Yeah, I think Twitter seemed pretty tame this week for the most part.
I won't look that gift horse in the mouth because I hear what people have gone through and it's horrible.
Yeah.
And, having a small business, like I don't want people in my face or giving me spurious business opportunities just so they can like kidnap me or something terrible. Yeah, I think the fact that they didn't pick the fact that I teach Krav Maga is like that blows my mind. Because it's like, wouldn't you want to mention that on television? And I was like, maybe I don't want people to know that. Like maybe that's something people shouldn't know so they can be surprised when I punch them in the throat.
That just made me think of, How I Met Your Mother, because he had one of his, many girlfriends. About that. So. Yeah.
Pretty much every time there's a Krav mention of any kind in like popular media, someone emails it or sends it to me immediately. So. Yeah. I guess the ISIS agents and Archer use Krav Maga, so.
Huh. Good to know.
Yeah.
So another question here on the hashtag. How exactly did you prepare once you got the call? I guess this is for Kerry and Jill.
Okay, Kerry, you go first.
I concentrated on things I didn't take in school because there were certain subjects that, like, I never took a history class in college. In fact, I never took one in high school besides American history, which, because I went to school in the middle of a cornfield, nothing else was required. So, I like American presidents, I studied them because, there was like a whole century that I didn't remember. And then, I read the atlas. Geography comes up often enough. But the biggest thing I did was watch like 300 episodes of Jeopardy in the 3 weeks before I went out, and just started to see patterns and, get familiar with, this is the, okay, there's 3 pieces of information in each question, and they give you 2 and they want a third, and more just, familiarity with the game.
Yeah, that's a great point, because sometimes you're just like, what are they asking in this question? Is like really, because there's 5 different ways to ask a question, and really to get to the piece of information. I have my Jeopardy calendar right here, and today, Monday's answer is a question about, it's about sort of this random civil rights activist, but the piece of the puzzle is what state is Little Rock in? I mean, that's not rocket science, and you have to like weed through this long clue to get to this piece of information. I also studied things that I hadn't really, I wasn't as weak, I thought that I was weaker on, particularly things like composers and opera, and kind of a lot of the musical things related to classical music, because it's been years since I played the violin, and I can't remember, Puccini, Verdi, whoever. So those areas, and the presidents, I try to remember the numbers because I had bonked on that on the in-person test in my audition, and then I was embarrassed because I was like, of course I know that, like, duh. So those things like that, but I didn't go super crazy because I felt like it's only so much information I could stuff in my head when I don't sleep more than a couple hours a night. And I also, honestly, I have to say, almost nothing that I studied came up in either of the 2 games I played. I mean, if I'd stayed longer, like Kerry, maybe it would have come up, but almost nothing that happened appeared in anything, because it was just life. I think, like, I was saying to someone yesterday, I got interviewed on the local radio station because they have nobody better to talk to, and it's you have to pay attention to life. Like, I'm the kind of person who watches the credits of movies when I do actually watch movies, and I'm just I've always been a nerd. I always just like to collect information. It's one of my strengths, like work-wise. I did my Strengths Finder, and one of my strengths is input. I'm not really a great analyst. I'm not going to make you beautiful charts and explain all your money, but I like to collect things, and I kind of just collect them in my head.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because one of the things I said when I was interviewed right after my games aired was, you need to read everything. Yeah. If you're sitting in the doctor's office, pick up that magazine that you've never read before and, look at the articles in it. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter, because you just never know where that piece of information. That's one thing I like about that movie, Working Girl, is that at the end she's proving, how she's the one who came up with the idea. And she's like, well, I went from this to this to this. And it's like, yeah, that's how knowledge is gathered. So
I think the internet has really revolutionized how it used to be magazines and the encyclopedia, but now, like, I'll go on Wikipedia and I'll just bounce around from article to article, picking up stuff.
Yeah, and then sometimes something would just occur to me, and I'd be like, what are all the presidents' middle names? I'm going to look that up. And that came up a couple weeks before my taping, and I was like, well, crap. Like, I managed to spend all this time learning that the B in Rutherford B. Hayes stands for Burchard, and now I don't need this information anymore. And I was sort of annoyed, but one day I found myself looking at the backs of all the state quarters because I was just like curious, like what's on the backs of all the state quarters, and I think that kind of curiosity is important. And I did play J-Archive a lot too. I went through a lot of J-Archive games just to see, as you know, as Ryan mentioned, the patterns, or Kerry mentioned the patterns, and just kind of immerse myself in that kind of culture, I guess. I'm glad to have that because I think people, I guess back in the day they used to get some kind of book, but people always say to me, "Oh, did they give you a book?" And I'm like, "There's no book, not anymore."
Oh, I know. People are always shocked. They're always shocked.
There never was a book. There never was a book actually at all.
Really?
So,
okay, I thought there was, but I must have misunderstood that.
Yeah. No, they're just that's one of those myths that came out of the fact that people people, I guess, people can't believe, well, how do you know so much? And they just assume. And
I know, people keep saying that to me sort of accusatorily, as if my answer is like witchcraft or Satanism or something. Like, I don't know.
Some illicit drug.
Like, I paid attention. I don't know. And sometimes it's kind of insulting because it's like, you're an idiot. How do you know so much? Like, I don't know. I don't know how to justify that,
I get asked that question all the time, and it's like, well, how do you remember so much,
That's, yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, it's all in there, it's all in everybody's brain. It's just, how do you get to it?
Yeah, it's recall. Actually, can you pull open the file drawer in your house and pull out, last year's tax forms, or are they all in a big pile? I mean, I think it's kind of how you recall things. Can you pull open that file drawer real fast and pull out that answer,
Yeah. And I think also one person who got a lot of that recently, Chris, the Disney bus driver who won 3 games.
Yeah.
People seem to be very shocked that he was doing very well.
Yeah, and that's insulting because that, being a bus driver, anybody, he's a very intelligent, sharp guy. Doesn't, I think that's insulting, the idea that, oh, you're a bus driver, you can't be that smart. That's dumb.
Mm-hmm. Now, some clarification, according to Matt Carberry, a submarine is referred to as a boat, by the way.
That's correct.
And so that's interesting. Do we have any other random questions from panelist to panelist here? I guess, sure, I'll go off the wall again. It was 52 here today, where I am, an hour west of Toronto. What's the weather like in Boston?
About the same.
Almost, yeah, Kerry. I mean, Kerry, you probably have the same weather we have. It's like almost, it was almost 60 here.
Yeah, it was in the upper 50s. It was beautiful, and of course, I did taxes all afternoon, so I didn't get outside. But
yeah.
But they're done.
What are the taxes like for someone who's been on Jeopardy?
Oh, well, this year, talk about, well, I mean, so I was on Jeopardy, and then I bought an electric car. There's a tax credit for that. I mean, it was just, we had, I don't know, like 27 piles of paper on the table today. It was crazy. And we don't actually do the taxes. We just do the planner to give to the accountant who does the taxes.
Right.
So.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't have nearly as many problems as Garrett. But I'm also, I'm self-employed. My husband works for the city. We have all kinds of stuff.
That's
There's like a whole bunch of different things to deal with. And, yeah, obviously you pay that California income tax or state tax, on the money you win, and then you pay your own state if your state has a tax, which Kerry's doesn't, but ours does. And so, yeehaw for me, more taxes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, my husband worked in Massachusetts for a year, so we had to file the, whatever, non-resident. It's just, yeah, taxes are not a fun thing.
Yeah, Taxachusetts doesn't have that name for, for no reason. We got taxes up to here.
Nothing like Canada, though, right, Andy?
I am unfamiliar with American tax law.
As you should be. Keep it as far away from your mind as possible. It's not worth knowing.
Well, actually, you know what? To be honest, as I said, I live an hour west of Toronto.
Where are you located?
Guelph.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I know where that is. I used to go to Toronto for work a lot. I love Toronto. We're talking about getting up there this summer because my husband hasn't really spent any time there, and I love it. So.
Is that town near Lake Ontario, or is it inland?
Toronto is on Lake Ontario. Guelph is not really on much of a lake. It's kind of an hour inland.
I used to have to do hiring for Canada and U.S. in my last big corporate job, and I had Thunder Bay, Ontario, as one of my sites, which is in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Yep.
Is it pretty? It looks like it would be beautiful, though, where it is.
Oh, yeah. I think it is, but just so far out there. I actually never got out there. They would never send me there because they were like, don't bother.
We went up to Western Ontario one summer when I was 10, and it was gorgeous. But, geez, you could drive for hours and, like, see nothing, you know? Mm-hmm. It was amazing.
Yeah, when you live in New England, these little small states, like, you could drive for hours and be like, you could go through 5 or 6 states and get into Canada. And, like, I lived in North Carolina for a while. You can drive from North Carolina 5 hours and you're still in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But to be honest, I think there is one reason why I'd like to have some sort of interaction with American tax law. So
I will hope for you. Yes, that would be helpful. Yeah, that's interesting. It must be interesting having to deal with the reciprocity across the border too.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that works, but I hope to know at some point in my life.
I hope that you do too.
Yes. Any other questions at this point?
I don't think so.
One comment from David Kendall, by the way, from Ken Jennings' book, The Way to Win on Jeopardy is to be a rabidly curious, information omnivorous person your entire life. And, of course, that quote from Ken Jennings.
Yeah, I totally agree to that. I was a very nerdy child, and I'm sure everybody else was too. I was an extremely nerdy child. I had thick engineer glasses, and my mother would yell at us to go outside and, play outside, and I would take my book and climb up the tree in the front of my house and read in the tree because that counted as playing outside. So, that's the kind of kid. That's the kind of kid that I was, and still am on many levels.
Yeah, that's one of the best things about the community is that everybody's like that. And, it's perfectly normal. In fact, it's kind of cool. So.
Yeah, Jill, as we mentioned earlier, you should try out LearnedLeague.
All right, if I ever find a moment to myself, finding this time to myself was pretty.
Yeah, it doesn't take very long. You can do it in as little as 10 minutes a day, and you'll have a little while before it kicks up again because we are in the beginning of the season now, so you've got some time. So yeah, just check out the website and.
I'll see. If I had 10 minutes a day, I could take a shower. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, small child plus own business equals like no. I mean, I shower before I see clients. That's true, but the rest of the time, not so much. So apparently, I've confessed to being nerdy and smelly. I just probably should give up. Just quit while I'm ahead, or not exactly ahead.
Any other questions at this point? Well, I hear crickets. So in terms of scheduling, I can tell you right now I've actually got dates set out for Jeopardy Live Panel the entire month of March. I've planned ahead, and I'm proud of myself. That hardly ever happens. But, of course, let's see. The next 2 weeks, March 6th and 13th, we are on at our normal time, 7 p.m. Eastern. March 21st, we will be live on location right after my pub quiz that evening, starting at just about 9 o'clock on March 21st. Live on location just after my pub quiz at night. Also the 27th, the following Sunday, will be at 7 o'clock Eastern. And then finally there will be a Sports Jeopardy special on March 28th, our third Sports Jeopardy special, March 28th, probably also around 9 o'clock that evening. Jay Sullivan, the man who is currently the Sports Jeopardy two-time champion after dethroning Vinny, he should be able to join us for that Sports Jeopardy special. It'll be good to talk to him and get his perspective on dethroning the king. So. For everyone here at the Jeopardy Live Panel and you guys, thank you guys for coming on. It was a great conversation tonight, and it's always fun.
Thank you for having us. It's great.
Thanks, Andy. Always fun.
Yes, thanks a lot, Andy.
I'll see them all again on the 21st. Everybody should watch that one.
Yes.
That's going to be the best one of the month. So.
Okay.
I would agree. Yes, I would agree. I'm already looking forward to the March 21st panel. So I don't even know.
I don't know if you know this, Jill, but I am traveling to Ontario for 5 days of trivia and drinking, although not in that order necessarily. So.
That sounds awesome. Simultaneous.
Yes, so Kerry will be part of that live on location panel on March 21st. So there are a few others who I believe will be in town. I'm not sure. I'll let the others announce their own presence. So just in case, in any case, for everyone here at Jeopardy Live panel, I'd like to thank you all for coming on the panel and tuning in if you're watching the Oscars. Enjoy the Oscars tonight. I hope you end up actually winning your Oscar pool. I don't have a horse. I don't have an entry in any Oscar pool this year, so I'm just going to rest on my laurels of last year's victory. So thank you guys. Yes, thank you guys for tuning in and for coming on. I will see you next Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.